Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another show. I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going live to do maybe a little bit of a live show. Or, well, obviously it's a live show, but a little bit of a call-in show. But there are a couple things I want to hit on first. In one of my last live shows, J.L. Warren had kind of stopped in and had suggested that I go over some Andrew Wilson stuff because I might be putting some words in J.L. Warren's mouth, but he'd been noticing that Andrew Wilson's debate shenanigans, his tactics, if you'll pardon that expression, have gotten a little, they're basically abusive, or I think abusive at worst, irrelevant at best. And so I have covered them a couple of times in relation to like some Pine Creek stuff, but I wanted to kind of go over that a little bit with this call-in show, and then leave it open for a few people if they want to actually like kind of jump in. So first, let's say hello to a few people that have jumped in. I didn't prep this or vlog it or anything, or pre-announce it. I just decided I'd do this. Red Fang's here. Good to see you, Red Fang. Stephanie's here. Good to see you as well. It's always good to see Stephanie here. Nicole Wilson is here. Yay, live. For you or for me? We'll find out how that goes. I could bite it hard on this one. Wilson's a flat-out totalitarian jackass. Yeah, I think that. I mean, that's the too long didn't watch right there, folks. So if you know Stephanie and you trust her opinion, she nailed it. You don't have to watch anymore. I'm basically just here to provide examples to back up what that comment just featured. So the first thing I want to do is kind of set up something that I think is kind of interesting, because there's a weird kind of confluence of stuff happening in like YouTube circles and stuff like that. Wilson puts himself in this position of where he's sort of this debate bro guy on all sorts of different topics. He's on the Whatever podcast. He's on his Crucible show. Maybe somebody in the live chat can give me like a tally of the number of times he has been banned, or one of his channels has been banned, because I think he has several, sock accounts just in case that happens. He's quite bad. For anybody that's looking for background on him, what I know about him, I'm pretty sure he lives in my state. I'm pretty sure he's here in the Mitten State, Michigan, and he is relatively recently a convert to Christianity. I believe Orthodox Christianity, and kind of a culture warrior, conservative justice kind of guy. I don't know. Is that a CJW, conservative justice warrior? But he seems like that, for the Christian cause. He smokes and he drinks, though, which I think you can do if you're Orthodox. You can if you're Catholic. You can if you're a Calvinist in certain circles. But I know his wife is a gun instructor. That seems pretty cool. I'm not being sarcastic either. I kind of find guns entertaining, dangerous, but entertaining, and admire anyone that has expertise in them. And yeah, for whatever that's worth. I should note that Andrew Wilson is not a gun instructor. His wife is. Don't know how he makes that work. Andrew Wilson's views have been, kind of like close to like paleo-conservative, but I think he believes the Bible guides them for whatever reason. Women would be happier if they couldn't vote. Not that they don't vote, can't vote. They probably should just give over all their income to men. Oh, wait, no, they shouldn't have an income to begin with. Barefoot, pregnant in perpetuity, and a gun instructor. Obviously, little carve out there for Andrew and his wife. So what basically happened here, the one that I've got, just to kind of give some perspective on this, Sam Cedar here runs a show called The Majority Report, and it's a left-wing podcast blog, whatever, on YouTube, and I think they're on TikTok now. And they've been around for a while. Sam Cedar has been doing this stuff forever. He used to work for MSNBC. He was on Air America back when that was a thing on like Sirius or FM radio or whatever. He used to host a show, I think, back in the day with, actually, several times with RFK Jr. back when RFK Jr. was still on the left. and Janine Garofalo, people like that. So Sam Seder's been doing this for quite a long time. Now he does this show, and he has been for several years now, and he got invited to this Jubilee channel. Jubilee is this like 1 versus 20 kind of, one man enters, nobody wins kind of debate-a-thon. And the screenshot that I got here is from a video that I recommend. The link to it is in the description. It's from Dan McClellan. And I highly recommend that you take a look at it, because Dan McClellan does a really good job of kind of tearing the guy on the right there, tearing his argument apart, and actually kind of like tearing his motives apart. The reason I bring this up is because I think it's good to take a look at that. But also because Andrew Wilson said that he was quite proud of seeing this moment in the debate, because this guy is using one of Andrew Wilson's arguments. And it's essentially like a genetic fallacy argument. The guy basically just sets up this entire thing where he's going to tell Sam Seder that Sam Seder can't account for his own morality, and he can't account for the foundation of his own morality. Therefore, morality reduces to a preference, and nobody cares. Nobody should listen to him. Ipso facto, I win, kind of thing. Sloppy, lazy, irrelevant, inaccurate, ignorant, pointless. Wilson's like, bravo, 10 out of 10, would endorse. I will give you a gold star if you ever enter my kingdom. So, yeah. What I thought made this interesting, though, is that throughout this entire Sam Seder thing, Andrew Wilson had quite a bit to say about what Sam Seder said in response to the people that he debated. And so I'm going to hide this one here. I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to start with one just to sort of illustrate the quality of commentary and the quality of analysis that you can expect from Andrew Wilson. And that is going to be, let's see here. I've got a few queued up. And by a few, I mean literally 3. It's not that many. Let's see here. This one is kind of sad. So this, hit the wrong one. This particular clip here, I'll shrink this down a little bit for now. And actually, I need to get it a full scale view here a little bit. This is from Kuehl V1C, 12.2K subscribers, and Andrew Wilson, all caps, dismantles Sam Seder's delusional 90% tax argument. And he's got a little description here. There's a link to the original. Oh, no, I think he removed it. Okay, perfect. To give you an idea, just to kind of preface what's going on here a little bit. Andrew Wilson was a guest on this guy's show. The younger dude with the short hair and the gold watch, right? And they're talking about Sam Seder's stuff. I'm going to play the clip. We don't have to watch the entire thing. It's like 14 minutes long. We're just going to watch the part where he's commenting on something, a claim that Sam Seder makes. And Andrew Wilson, he's going to set the record straight for us. Kuehl, V1C, thinks that this is, just dead on. They were so convinced that it was dead on that they had the original link featured in the description so that you could go to the original video and watch the entire thing yourself. The problem with that was, by the time I was thinking about actually doing this particular live show, and I checked on it, when you clicked on it, this guy, that guy, put it in private. So you couldn't watch it anymore. And you'll see why. So, let's see here. Let's full screen that. Let's get me out of the way, kind of. And let's just let Andrew Wilson work his magic. You can see his brain at work. In fact, I will hide myself.
Well, what this guy proposes, you have to think about it, right? He's saying at $3 million and 90% would leave you with what? $300,000? Leave you with $300,000. So what incentive do people have exactly to give up 90% of their income?
Andrew Wilson completely torches Sam Cedar of the Majority Reports for Sam Cedar's recent comments. Sam Cedar went on and argued that we should have a 90% tax for anyone making a certain dollar amount, which he has argued for before. Obviously, it's ridiculous, but you have lefties like Sam Cedar that think it's a good idea, and Andrew Wilson joins Lord Jake Rattlesnake here to dismantle his argument and explain why it's a terrible idea. Let's see what Andrew Wilson has to say.
Clip with you. This was from Piers Morgan the other day, and we cover this on our channel as well. But it's good. Sam Cedar, who is a guy.
So I'll just pause this right now. He's going to get into playing this particular. This is why they were incensed. So I got this wrong because I thought this came up during the Jubilee thing too, but and maybe it does. But this was actually from a Piers Morgan hangout. They brought Sam Cedar on there, and he was talking with a variety of people. One of them was Benny Johnson or something like that. He's a very cringe right-wing provocateur type on social media. And so they're going to actually play the clip. You've heard what Andrew Wilson says. Andrew Wilson believes that Sam Cedar, leftist extraordinaire, probably walks around with like Mao's red book in his pocket, believes in a 90% flat tax, right? A 90% tax on all income. So if you made $100, you get to keep 10. And there's a reason why he said the 3 million part. We'll hear that because he said, "Oh, you earned 3 million, but after the government takes its 90%, you're only left with 300,000." That math is correct. If that was how those taxes worked. So here we go. Let's play this.
Guy that I would absolutely love to see you debate.
Yeah, I've tried to set it up multiple times.
Oh, that would be awesome because he's one of these guys who's sort of seen as.
From what I understand, he is not. There was actually the on the Majority Report. They were watching this and they're like, "Have we heard from him? Has he attempted to set up anything?" Because we'll have a discussion with him if he wants. I don't think that he's ever done that. So, for what it's worth, take that with a grain of salt.
Is a thought leader of the left, I guess, and a good debater of the left. I don't really see it myself. I see him as very, very disingenuous and condescending.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously no one with a brain sees Sam Cedar as that, but I mean, seeing as most of his viewers are fellow lefty lunatics, you could kind of understand why they would see him as some kind of thought leader and great debater. On our side, we got people like Andrew Wilson. They got Sam Cedar.
Oh, well, glaze away on Andrew Wilson. We got Andrew Wilson, Andrew MF and Wilson, and they got Sam Cedar. Oh my God.
And he really couldn't. He went on Tim Pool's show, and Tim Pool's no conservative, but he couldn't even take him to school. And his abortion argument was terribly weak, I thought.
Tim Pool is no conservative? This guy thinks that Tim Pool is not conservative enough.
But here's him arguing for 90% taxes.
I want to just reiterate that. I apologize for pausing again. This is Sam Cedar. This clip here. This is Sam Cedar arguing for 90% tax rate across the board.
Do you like the level of debt your country's in?
I don't think it's as much of a problem as you do, but here we know the debt shot off like a rocket with the Bush tax cuts and then with the Trump tax cuts, and they want to extend those. And so if we want to deal with the debt, and if that's a genuine concern, we can go back to the time in this country where we had the greatest economic expansion during the 50s and the 60s, when we had a top tax marginal rate of 90% of every dollar that would be earned over $470,000. Today, it would be $3 million.
All right. So, I mean,
for all those listening at home, what did you hear from Sam Cedar that was different than what you heard from these two guys? From Mr. Australia and Captain Tobacco over here. It was set up at the beginning. He wants a 90% income tax. You earn $3 million, you keep $300,000. Government takes 90%. What Sam Seder just said is he wanted a 90% top marginal tax rate. That is not merely some wonky distinction. It's massive. It's a massive difference. So let's see what they say. Let's see if they maybe correct themselves. They've watched the clip. They've heard the words. This guy has shown Andrew Wilson the clip. Sam Seder saying this to a panel. Let's see if Wilson changes his tune.
Just my take on this is obviously it's comparing apples and oranges when you're looking at the 1950s economy as to now, because if you're looking at the 1950s, America was obviously a manufacturing powerhouse back then, and nowadays we have a much more globalized market. So anybody can just take their innovation and move to Singapore or move to Dubai if they want to. So
they can just do that. Yes. In some cases, if they're very, very wealthy, they can. The limitations start stacking up the less capital that you have.
What do you think about that 90% tax rate?
Well, it's all nonsense anyway. I mean, people weren't spending, corporations nor individuals who had that kind of wealth were actually paying 90% in taxes. It's just ridiculous. They would do what everybody else does. They would do reinvestment, things like this in their corporation in order to hide money, or they would do what's very common right now, which is they will take all their money, tie them up in assets, and then take out personal loans and live off the personal loans where they don't have to pay taxes because it's a personal loan, right? So a lot of really rich people will do this. They'll say, "Oh, I have $500 million. I'll tie up all $500 million dollars into various assets and things like this, and yeah, I'll pay capital gains on it, but so what? It'll still be making me money. And then what? But I'll never have to pay the income tax every single year. And the way that I'll avoid that is I'll take out a personal loan. I'll take out a personal loan of, let's say, $1 million a year or something like this, and I have all the assets in the world in order to do that. Any bank on the planet will give me that loan because they know I'm good for it, and then I'll live off of that, and I'll take no income. I'll just take no income, and so they don't pay it, right? There's always been ways to stash it. So
Wilson starts up by saying, okay, well, this is how you dodge taxes if you're rich, which is partially true. The way he's describing it is a little bit awkward, but yes, essentially that's what you do. There's actually, was it Scott Galloway? There's a video of Scott Galloway describing this to an interviewer, that this is how wealthy people avoid paying even the 15. Now, keep in mind, one of the things that we used to hear from people, especially from Republicans and conservatives, was that, look, the wealthy cannot be bothered with the regular tax rates that the, hoi polloi and working class have to deal with. They need to be able to have like a flat rate. So we'll keep it at around 15% capital gains. That way, that seems fair. All right. So they lowered it to 15%. In order to avoid even paying the 15%, they run this shtick. You only pay 15% on the money that your money made for you in the stock market, bonds, whatever, when you try to cash it out, when you try to remove it. If you let it ride, it just sort of sits there. You don't really pay taxes on that. This was one of the, I think, the controversies around like the carried interest thing or something like that. They were going to try to like find a way to tax that anyway. And it was not well liked by the moneyed classes. What you can do is take out a loan against what you own in terms of bonds. They're constantly going up. You've got capital invested in the stock market. You can take out loans against that, just like Wilson described, and then you live off that. Now, obviously, you have to pay off that. You have to pay interest on that loan, but as long as you pay it off relatively quickly and you keep this quick churn and burn cycle, that interest rate really doesn't affect you that much, to whereas the 15% would have affected you, well, at 15%. So when I hear things like that, I kind of wonder, like, wait a minute, why did we go to 15%? Why not just have capital gains at 50% if it's that easy to dodge? That way the 50% hits the moron that doesn't take out a loan against their stuff. But they couldn't do that. They had to make, pity the poor capitalist. They have to pay out so much. Well, it'll set it at 15%. They can't even be bothered to pay the 15%. They found a way to get around that too, with this screwy way of doing things. But he's trying to say right now is that this is the way they're getting around this kind of stuff. And this was happening back in the day. Back when I think maybe he's thinking back in the good old days, like Sam Cedar was talking about, when there was a 90% tax rate, marginal tax rate, which means it was the top marginal rate on that. And I'll get into that in just a second. Let's play out the rest of what he's talking about here, and we'll see
What this
happens.
guy proposes, you have to think about it, right? He's saying at $3 million and 90% would leave you with what? 300,000? Leave you with $300,000. So what incentive do people have exactly to give up 90% of their income? Why would you, in other words, why would you want to make $3 million? Why wouldn't you make 2.5 million?
Okay, so seriously, like, screw this. This is complete bullshit. This is not real. And Andrew Wilson, the reason, like I said before, the reason that the link to this show was pulled off the source that I'm watching right now was because he got flamed on this quite hard. It's a marginal tax rate, which means you pay 90% for every dollar earned after 3 million. Not on the total 3 million. After 3 million. There's grades of it. We all pay taxes this way. There's tiers, there's layers. You pay 20% up to this point, and then for every dollar earned after that point, after it hits that next tier, you go into that one. Every dollar earned at that above this ceiling, above that one, gets taxed at this rate. Not that rate. You don't get taxed at the entire. It's not like now I'm making $100,000. Now I'm paying 30. Now I'm giving 30% of all of my money to the of that 100,000 to the government. No, that's not how it works. You paid like 10% up to 30%. You paid 15% up to 70%. You paid, it's staggered. That's why there are marginal tax rates, and that's why this link is missing. So this is a pretty good example of how the right wing has been telling people that this is what left wingers want, especially when left wingers are like, well, hey, we could go back to the age, before Kennedy adopted, it was pre-Reaganomics, and started slashing that kind of stuff. And they're like, what do you mean? I got to go back to paying 82% of my income to the government? Like, you're just referencing the top tax rate in the schedule. For a lot of people, they would never hit it. You would never pay that because you would only hit that once you'd earned a massive amount of money. Like they said, the difference is like $470,000 back when the 90% marginal tax rate was in effect was the equivalent to $3 million today. You had to be earning $3 million. And I believe you actually had, even back then, you had to be earning it as an income, not as some kind of passive thing or something like that. There was different tax categories even then. But some of that stuff has changed, like I said. So anyway, that's I think a good setup to let you know this is the kind of person that we're talking about. This is the level of knowledge that he has about talking about these kinds of issues, where he's just going to write this off as well, this Sam Cedar guy is completely absurd. That's not how taxes work. Agreed. That's not how taxes work, Andy. Not at all. So let's say hello to a few more people. Amy Avery's here. Good to see you. Let's see. Good to see you. Michael Deaton is here. Spooky's here. I'm late to a proper live stream. Yeah, it's fine. It's not a proper live stream. I'm just kind of doing a thing. Otangelo says, I just came to say you are still wrong. About what? Okay. So the reason that I showed you that was to kind of get into Andrew Wilson has been making the rounds in quite a few circles. He's been debating quite a few people, and this guy, I don't know if he's chummy with somebody like Doug from Pine Creek, but he's constantly poking at something. He's always trying to put himself out there he's going to be the combatant for the Republican side, the conservative side. Let me get rid of that. Let's see here. I want to get into this. So this was something that he did on. Let me share it first, and we'll get into that. Oh, where's the share button? There we go. So this is the direct feed from Breakfast Tacos, and his channel's been growing pretty good. He is a mod over on the politics server for Discord, which gets a lot of activity, and they host debates like this. Andrew Wilson and Planet Peterson had a debate over there that went on, according to this thing, 5 hours and 53 minutes, which is absolutely insane. That's not a debate. That is time spent in a hell dimension. But I wanted to play this portion because it's weird, and I wasn't sure if I heard this correct. I did not watch all of this. I checked in at some point. This was the portion that I heard, and I kind of did a double take a couple of times. So I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to post the link to see if some people want to jump in. So let's play this. And I believe, the topic is, it's right there. Christianity shouldn't be in government.
Okay. The second thing, sorry, what was the second thing?
Yeah, I will just do this very quickly. Okay, just so that you very quickly, I got to reclaim my time.
Yeah.
So the question I'm asking you, you need to be, you have to demonstrate that it would actually be dysfunctional. That's your claim. I don't want to hear about demonstrations that religiosity can lead some people to become more dysfunctional. I would need to know how the nation itself is going to become dysfunctional because you get rid of the part in the First Amendment that says that Congress has to respect every establishment of religion. I need to know how does that make the nation?
Congress does not have to respect the establishment of any religion. What he's talking about is the Establishment Clause, which is about whether or not the federal government is going to establish a state religion. And the language is, it shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. In other words, no state religion. It's going to leave it alone. We'll get into that in a little bit, but he's already falling apart a little bit on this. So let's see what happens as he talks with Planet Peterson about this.
Actually dysfunctional to get rid of the Establishment Clause.
The studies I was referring to, they weren't talking about it wasn't about individuals. It's about the country as a, one does it by a state basis. The other does it was a more national study. But for example, I can prove that even according to you, there seems like some pretty damning information, because I'm pretty sure that you're not in favor of STDs, teen pregnancies, suicide, low life expectancy.
You haven't shown how any of those things. You haven't shown how any of those things would suddenly go boom because you got rid of the Establishment Clause. Like, for instance, I'll explain the contradiction. I'll explain the contradiction in terms real quick. Even if it were the case that right this second, okay, religious people, it was correlated with teen pregnancy and all of these different things. These people are free to exercise that religion now. So wouldn't it be the case if they weren't free to exercise that would actually lower those rates?
What?
I don't know what that could possibly have been an argument for, because what you find is all those things I brought up are highest among the most religious states. So the more religious you are, the more teen in this country.
Planet Peterson's not exaggerating here. If you look at rates of, like, a lot of the stuff that Andrew Wilson as a cultural conservative dislikes, teen pregnancy, abortion, STDs, what they would call porn addiction, which is basically just having your eyes open while porn happened in front of you. All of that stuff, the rates of that stuff are much higher in the Southeast and the Bible Belt than they are in other parts of the country. The parts of the country that Andrew Wilson will tell people that even though he's alpha, he's afraid of, like California and San Francisco, which will, turn him into a, how would he describe it? Well, he would use words that would be unfit for YouTube, but they would turn him into a festive person, maybe even a happy person. He can't have that, and he doesn't need that, half a pack of Marlboro Reds and, a 6-pack of Coors, and he's ready to go.
The more teen pregnancy you have,
but if
the more
Congress
people
doesn't
get
have to
STDs.
respect the establishment of religion anymore, right? They can say that you can't practice unhealthy religions, can't they?
Did you hear that? They don't have to respect the establishment. Does he think that the language in the establishment clause, when it says respecting the establishment of religion, is about respecting religions? I double-taked on this. I even made like the Nixon haru, kind of noise when I heard it. I was like, what? Hang on. That's not what it's about. Guys like Andrew Wilson have a real hard time with the notion of secularism, because in order to advance their particular motive, their thing, it's to tell people that secularism is godlessness, and it's not. Secularism is essentially like a God-neutral position, especially when it comes to government. And the problem with secularism, as voiced by conservative Christians like Andrew, is that it doesn't have God in it, so it doesn't have enough God. The real problem with secularism for Christians like Andrew Wilson is that it has too many gods in it. It allows for all the gods, and you kind of have to just deal with all of them out there. Andrew Wilson doesn't like this. So the goal has been to misrepresent what secularism actually is, which they want to conflate with atheism or agnosticism, and it's not. It has nothing to do with that. It's just about, the government has this is in this camp, right? And it does these things. And as far as religion goes, they can kind of obviously they're going to have differences of opinion and stuff. They're off in their own camps. The government is not going to interfere with it unless they're starting to break the law or something like that. And they can't, and the government is not going to endorse one of them over any of the others. That's it. So this idea if they don't have to respect any of them, then they could prevent people in the country from practicing the harmful religions. I find that fascinating. Which are the harmful ones? Because based on what Planet Peterson was just talking about, if harm is determined by rates of disease, rates of teen pregnancy, rates of abortion, rates of illiteracy, et cetera, then the Southeast, which is professed to be the most religious, is having the highest number of those problems. So based on what Wilson's saying, then the government should step in and say, you know what, Bible Belt, you need to quit being so Bible. I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe a little Buddhism, maybe a little Islam, maybe just more Nintendo. I don't know, but got to get your act right.
What?
Answer my question. Couldn't they say that?
That didn't make any sense.
What didn't make any sense?
The phrasing of your question when you're using respect that way.
Do you want me to ask the question again? If Congress did not have to respect the establishment of religion anymore, then unhealthy religions, right, or religions they deem to be unhealthy for the nation.
You're advocating for banning Christianity.
I didn't advocate for anything. When did I make any advocate?
They don't have to. I don't even know what he's talking about at this point. They don't have to respect the. What did he even say there? That was insane.
For anything ever.
Just now?
I'm asking when was that an advocation? I'm asking you simple.
No, Peterson is kind of on the right track based on how you could take what Andrew said there. He's kind of advocating for the fact, because Peterson had just said, in those states where all these things are going bad, based on that logic, the government should be saying hey, you know what, Bible Belt, be less Bible. All these things are going bad, and yet you guys are all, you're 80-90% Christian, and yet you're trending in all these negative and unhealthy ways, culturally, physically, medically.
Questions about your worldview. Do you know what the difference is?
Yes.
So, oh God, Andrew's doing the. I'm just asking you about your worldview. Do you know what the difference is? I don't. Does Andrew understand what the usage of the term respecting means in the Establishment Clause with regards to what it's talking about in terms of its relationship between the government and religion? It's not saying that the government can't respect religions, and it's not saying the government has to respect all religions. It's saying that the government will not pass a law respecting the establishment of a religion.
So,
I do.
Great. So then, where was there ever an advocacy for X from me?
Okay.
Nowhere.
Now Andrew's just losing his shit. Like Peterson wasn't something like, no, it follows that this is advocacy for that.
My
You
apologies.
fucking made it up. So that aside,
so Andrew can't follow a trail. Cool.
I'm going to ask you again. If it were the case that the Establishment Clause was gone, couldn't Congress then not respect religions which were unhealthy for this society?
It would make absolutely no difference. It would be if the Establishment Clause were gone, the only difference it would make is that the government could decide to establish a federal religion. He fundamentally does not understand what the Establishment Clause is about. Aaron's got this. Refers to adopting a national religion. Yes. This is insane.
Can you answer my question, dude?
And he's just going to get louder and more indignant. You must address my... Like, you know what? No.
Such a bizarre question that doesn't make any sense because
the Establishment
Clause doesn't ban religions. It says that Congress will not make a state religion. It doesn't say that Congress doesn't have the ability to ban religion. It says that Congress will not impose religious law onto the population.
Says the free exercise thereof. You are wrong, sir. So yes, if you got rid of the Establishment Clause, the free exercise thereof would be gone. So,
but what? No, it wouldn't. Oh my God. The free exercise of religion is not established in the Establishment Clause. The Establishment Clause is just saying the federal government won't establish a federal religion. Peterson's right. That doesn't mean that... Andrew thinks that if you get rid of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, then people can't practice religion. Unbelievable. Good to see you, Tacos, and thank you for hosting this incredibly long debate. I don't know how you did it, but and also kudos to you for dealing with Andrew's. I did catch some of Andrew's disrespect thrown your way. I couldn't have done it, man. I would have come out of the booth.
The Establishment Clause is not the same thing as you are allowed to practice your religion.
Yes, it is. It says the free exercise thereof. I'll read it for you, sir.
And regarding the free exercise, it's about Jesus Christ. Oh my God. He's going to read it out loud and blow himself up.
Here, we'll read it. Because apparently you don't even know what it says.
Andrew doesn't. Pat is here. Good to see you, Pat. Are you the human idiot detector? Your ability to find fucking idiots on YouTube is truly amazing. I apologize to everyone for this. I did not discover Andrew Wilson. I was not the first to discover him. Others can take credit for that.
Okay.
I'm like chaotic neutral in D&D. Yeah, you'd have to be. I don't know what I might be chaotic good. Or maybe neutral evil. I can't tell. I don't know how that works.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment. I think he thinks that by what that means is Congress isn't going to make a law where the government respects a religion. Or respects a religion maybe over
another. Prohibiting the free exercise thereof.
Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Right. But all that means, if you remove the Establishment Clause, it allows the government to then establish a state religion and then make laws restricting religion, other religions. But it doesn't mean that that restriction happens. It's just not spoken of. Some of the stuff that, they didn't, some of the founding fathers didn't even want this stuff like laid out in the Bill of Rights. They were just like, no. You should be able to glean that from a plain reading of the original. And there were others that were like, no, we're going to need some stuff a little bit more emphatic here.
You understand the free exercise thereof. So if you got rid of that, they could prohibit the free exercise thereof. Correct?
But not because they got rid of it. They'd have to establish something else in order to do that. He's right in the sense that does prevent them from doing that. But it's also preventing them from establishing the state religion as well. If they got rid of the whole thing, yes, they could establish a state religion, and yes, they wouldn't have to deal with that. And I don't know what he was doing with the whole, like, they don't have to respect these other religions. Like, what are you talking about? That doesn't have anything to do with it.
Sure. So we would
get rid of Christianity. Oh, wow, you just answered a fucking question.
Can
we get you a medal for actually answering the question? So yes.
At this point, like this is when you tell a person to fuck off. I mean, seriously, Andrew Wilson is fucking ignorant as shit. You just tell him to fuck off, and that's it. Like, you know what? I'm not going to talk to you. Aren't you the guy that thinks that women shouldn't be allowed to vote? They get their rights from men. They don't negotiate in the political process. Fuck off. You can gag on all of me.
It is indeed the case.
Calm down.
It is indeed. Well, dude, I have to pull the answers out of you.
Andrew, you're trying to pull answers out of Planet Peterson, and Peterson's like, "What? Did you listen to what I said?"
Because you don't want to answer them. This is what I was talking about by bad faith.
Aren't you kind of insisting that is bad faith? Oh, you don't want to answer my questions. Peterson does not know where you're going with this. He even said that. He was confused by the direction that you were taking things. That didn't seem like bad faith to me.
So real quick, it's bad faith. Just answer the questions, dude. So then it is the case that if Congress then no longer had to respect the free exercise of religion, they could actually go through and stop the bad behaviors of bad religions, couldn't they?
They could stop the good behaviors of good religions. Why is he saying bad behaviors of bad religions? They could stop the good behaviors of good religions. They could do whatever they wanted, but they'd probably have to establish something beyond that. This is a problem dealing with this kind of thing. Implicit within the Bill of Rights are these kinds of notions. They decided to flesh them out into the Bill of Rights and make some of these aspects a lot more explicit. Certain people wanted it that way. Others disagreed with it because they felt if you made certain things explicit, it would allow for people to wrangle about them and find weird weasel-worded ways around those particular rights, as opposed to just kind of living within the spirit of it. This is a big part of the debate. And here we have Andrew trying to say, well, that's exactly what would happen. No, not necessarily. That is not necessarily what would happen. The thing that is interesting to me is that what's not happened here, and I'm not sure if Andrew Wilson knows this, because this might really like boil his noodle. The states could establish a religion. The individual states had their own governments, they had their own constitutions, and they were not held, according to the original draft, they were not held to this standard. The Establishment Clause of the First Amendment prevented the federal government from passing a law respecting the establishment of a religion at the federal level. That did not exclude states from being able to do that. In fact, at least a couple of states did do that. They established state religions. Is Wilson aware of that? Probably not. I can't believe I had to make specific debate rules for preceptors. I'm going to change the format, I think. I want to be inclusive of preceptors, but they are so dumb. Yeah, well, While I listen to a little bit more of this, let me put the join link in here. Let's see. The bad thing about that, I don't know if this is going to work. So this will actually be kind of an interesting test. Pop that in there. And let me pin it up on top. All right. So if anybody is interested in joining me on the show, obviously no pressure if you don't want to do that. If you do want me to read a comment or anything specifically, if you really want to call something out, just, at Jefferson Spatchcock and send me the comment. I'll read it here and feature it here. I try to remember to do that. But if you're interested in coming on and asking a question, my goal for this particular one, if anybody's like starting to line up, I'm not going to bring in like a group chat. It's going to be one at a time. So if you do come in, I'll deal with one person and kind of get you off within a few minutes and get you off. Durable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which would be Christianity.
Okay, so do you think that there's any other religions in the United States which are worse than Christianity?
Well, you'd have to go through every flavor of Christianity first. That'd be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then if Christians were in power and stopped the free exercise thereof of those religions, wouldn't that be good?
No, because here's the problem with that. Like, okay, so the federal government establishes a religion, and I think it's adorable that Wilson thinks it's Christianity. That's the religion. It's going to be either Roman Catholicism or Eastern Orthodoxy or something like that. He knows better than this, but he's talking to Planet Peterson, and he's just going to try to like glaze through this. You're going to end up having a problem between like the establishment of a Catholic state in the United States versus all the Protestants that are here, and vice versa. Okay, so they do that. They establish the government establishes the religion, and now, hey, isn't that a good thing? And now they're going to be able to weed out and discriminate against all the negative and harmful ones. Okay. Are they able to do anything against the established religion that they adopted? One of the issues that happens when you merge government and religion in this kind of way is that the religion can start to feed into a weird thing where because they are, the servants of God, emissaries of God, the mouthpieces of God, blah, 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 whatever, the state can't check them. So yes, the government would be able to go out and be like, you know what, you can't discriminate in this way, and you can't do this, and you Muslims can't do this, and you Hindus can't do this, and you Buddhists can't do this, and you pagans definitely, you're not even allowed here. But Christians start having an issue with, say, I don't know, child abuse, child sexual abuse. Can the state say anything? Depends on the amount of power the state religion has. That'd be a problem. If Andrew Wilson wants to know what that's like, all he's got to do is read into not so recent Irish history. Look at the influence that the Roman Catholic Church had on the establishment of the Irish Constitution and the issues that has brought. And they'll still reverberate throughout the country.
I don't think that would be good.
Oh, okay. So then when you say shouldn't, Christians shouldn't be in power, right?
Never said that.
That's your whole claim. Your whole claim is that Christianity shouldn't be in government.
And you completely changed it by saying Christians shouldn't be in power.
We're saying the same thing.
Christianity shouldn't be in power.
You think?
No,
we're
absolutely not.
What's the semantic distinction?
Because what you're talking about, Christians shouldn't be in government, means banning people that practice a certain religion from serving in government. I don't believe in that.
No.
It's them
the semantic distinction between power and government. Clearly, if Christians have governmental authority, they have power. Like we're talking about the same.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wilson is partially correct on this, yes, but that would be the problem. You've got abuses in these other religions that the government is allowed to police because they're not established ones. But if the Christians in the established government religion start demonstrating abuses, to what extent can the government police them? That's a problem.
Same thing. We're not talking past each other here. So the thing is, very quickly, because I only have so much time, if it is the case that Christians shouldn't be in government, But
This is at 124. I think he's here. Oh no, this goes on for much longer. Okay. I thought this went on for like, okay, so when does Andrew drop off? At around the 147 mark, I think. Oh no, he's still there? Or maybe they're just rewatching it. Not sure.
if Christians were
That's
That
not
what?
my claim.
your claim, isn't that okay? Christianity shouldn't be in government.
Yes.
Okay, so wait a second. So if Christians are in government, Christianity is not in government.
There was an open group chat after. Gotcha, Tacos.
I address this earlier because I said if a Christian serves in government and their beliefs overlap with the current structure of the Constitution or whatever, then there's no problem with that, because the Establishment Clause doesn't say we will ban, or we're going to do the opposite of all religions, because
okay,
I mean that
then
would
help
be
me.
stupid.
Okay, bro. So anytime
Why is Wilson having a problem
Christians
with this?
then who utilize their normative ethical authority for things like abortion in government, that's wrong?
Oh, Wilson. Here's the problem with what Wilson's doing. Okay. You've got two different kinds of playbooks that you've got going on here. If you have a secular government does not have to be disrespectful to the religions around it. It can be completely respectful. It can even be enthusiastic about having as many religions in and around the country as possible. The issue is going to be whether or not some of those religious influences are going to trump or push past the guidelines and the sort of rails that have been built up by the establishment of the secular law. Essentially the rule of law, all people treated equally under the rule of law, et cetera, et cetera. What usually ends up happening for somebody like Andrew Wilson is that he believes that, well, wait a minute, hang on here. If some Christian shows up and they've got this kick-ass firework, crackerjack, moral code, buffed up on Jesus juice and Yahweh sauce, then we got to listen to these guys, because they really know how to get us successful, and they really know how to do. And it just so happens to turn out that that's exactly it coincides exactly with what Andrew Wilson wants culturally. Women aren't voting, women aren't owning land, women are barefoot, they're pregnant. We get rid of the immigrants, blah, blah, blah. All of this stuff it just magically lines up. It just works. Horse shit. That's not how this works at all. Not at all. If and this is a central problem with a lot of Christians, secularism is not the issue that they think it is. Again, I'm going to reiterate this again. They think that they say secularism is a problem because it doesn't allow their God. That's not the case. Secularism is a problem because it allows their God plus all the rest. And they don't want to compete. So everything that Andrew is saying here, like, well, wait a minute, you got these guys that show up here and they go, Christians have got this great idea. Well, what about the Hindus? What about the Muslims? We have a foundation for how we're going to treat everybody equally under the law right here. We've got the basic skeleton for how we're going to treat American citizens. And now you're showing up and saying, no. One of the things that you need, we're going to throw a little spice on that. And we want you to consider our point of view when you're dealing with this issue, and when you're dealing with people, and when you're discussing their rights. Okay, why you and not the rest of them? What's going on? What's the deal? And according to somebody, I know exactly where Andrew Wilson will go with this. Christianity is the foundation for America. They have the correct normative juice to splash all over everybody, and they'd be like, yeah, I can tell you what's right and wrong, because Jesus told me what's right and wrong. That's a non sequitur and gross, but that's what they're trying to do. Listen to me because I listen to him. And do you know how I know what he says is right? It's kind of cool. It's whatever I tell you he says is right. It's a real Ken takes over Barbie land kind of vibe with Andrew Wilson, and I'm not having it. So
they shouldn't do that.
If they're imposing their specific religious beliefs on other people, then that's a violation of, I think that creates dysfunctional governments. That's a violation of the First Amendment. Even if you argue that we could just get rid of the First Amendment, I think history shows us that creates dysfunctional governments.
Yeah.
I would do this kind of thing. I think that Andrew Wilson would have a real problem with this. Oh, I've got a guest. Let's hide this because I've probably listened to that more than I need to. Hey, Matty, what's going on? I thought he was here. You're supposed to be on screen, but I can't hear you or see you. I wonder if this is not working. Time to check Discord. Mr. Mowdy, are you there? We can't hear you. Well, this sucks. I'm going to blame this on me because this happened before. I tried to have my brother and Michael the Canadian Atheist on, and it didn't work. But the last time I had one, it worked. It worked just fine. So I'm not sure if that join link is not working. I am going to... Let me try this. Let me try kicking in. Mowdy, if you want, try selecting that again. Let's see. Sorry about this, folks. I can hide that now. Yeah, Madi, if you want to click that. Is that link still there? I think it still is. Yeah, it's there. I'm always a little bit, leery about that. But if I can't get anybody on, I will. I might check out now because I've kind of covered everything that I wanted to cover. More so. I actually did a lot more yammering than I should have done. All right. Well, I think I might just end it here because it's not going to be much of a call-in show if I can't get anybody, if no one is able to call in. I blame Logitech. Logitech buys Streamlabs. Streamlabs had purchased Mint, turned Mint into Talk Studio. Talk Studio doesn't work. Ugh. I should go back to StreamYard. But they cost so much. Not going to do that. All right. All right, folks. Well, I think I'm going to get out of here. Big apologies to Mr. Christopher Mowdy. I would have loved to have him on the stream and ask some of his questions or answered some of his questions or taken some of his questions. But it looks like he can't get on, and I'm kind of suspecting that maybe nobody else can either. That sucks. So call-in show was a bust. Well, I ranted about Andrew Wilson. I got that off my chest. For any of you who were not familiar with Andrew Wilson, unfortunately now you are. Feel free to blame me. It's entirely my fault. Yeah. I probably shouldn't have done that. Anyway, I'll be back with some pre-recorded stuff probably released later in the week, but I'm hoping to do more of these if I can figure out how to get the live call-in thing to work. So hopefully it does. I'm going to check out of here, and I'm going to check in with Chris and see how... Uh-oh, hang on. Maybe I'm not. Get rid of that. Why am I not on? Okay, there I am. Just dump that. I think he dropped out again. TK. I also blame JS for Andrew Wilson being a terrible person. It is all my fault. I did terrible things to him as a child. We live in the same state, We all know each other here. Isn't his nickname Big Papa Fascist? Yes. That was his username. When people called him out for it, he was just like, whatever, get wrecked, cucks. I don't mean it that way. I don't mean it literally. He absolutely does mean it that way. Loves that energy. Wilson versus Dillahunty is still a brilliant flame out for Wilson, and it was made to look like a flame out for Dillahunty, and Dillahunty's just like, you know what, this guy's awful, and he leaves, and then Wilson's going around patting himself on the back like, yeah, I made him quit early. Like, you didn't even engage with the debate, bud. You just came out there and, you know, insulted his girlfriend. It won't recognize my mic. My stuff won't. That does not surprise me. Which is weird because my USB interface has never really had a problem with it. I don't know why it wouldn't recognize your mic. But yeah, there's nothing I can do on my side to actually fix it. I tried, and none of the sound settings over here allow me to, like, you know, move anything around or anything other than just muting you or removing you or, you know, blanking out your camera. Yeah, thanks, Spooky, for the reminder. The link is pinned. Right now, the show is based entirely on technical difficulties. Exciting. Mowdy, I do not blame you for this. I entirely... Somebody joined. Okay. I don't see anybody in the little video. Let's turn them up. I don't see anybody in the little video. Let's turn them up. I don't see anybody. Just me.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you doing? Hello. How is this working? I do not get this. I can't hear you, John. He's trying to get it to work too. Might have said to switch camera, PON, on and off a few times. Okay. I don't know what it's doing. I don't know why it was doing that thing where it was basically like broadcasting in, but maybe John found a way around it, and it was just broadcasting my. Let me.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
It just booted me out before for some reason. Hopefully this won't happen again. I just wanted to get your take on that latest bit with Planet Peterson and Wilson. I thought that Planet Peterson kind of flubbed it a little bit on one of those last points from Andrew. When Andrew asked him, if someone who is religious has a firmly held belief, should they not be allowed to use that to inform their policy-making decisions? And Planet Peterson said, no, they shouldn't. I'm not sure what the justification is for that. What's the difference between having a bad take that is grounded in religion and having a bad take that is grounded in just having bad takes?
Yeah, and I don't think if that's how that played out, I don't agree with that. Like if that's where Peterson was going with it, because my take on it is like, if you are approaching basically it's about compartmentalization, right? Like if you're a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim and you want to be involved in public life and you want to be, you know, either an elected public servant or a civil servant or something like that, we all know this. This is something that conservatives know extremely well because they remind people of why they're supposed to do this. They should learn how to accept the authority of their boss. They need to understand the value of a hard day's work, all this other kind of stuff. Now, that could actually be completely antithetical to your religious disposition. But if you want to contribute in the economy abroad or in government abroad or any of this other kind of stuff, that's how you need to go. And so a lot of this is left onto the individual to sort of reconcile whatever their individual religious ideas are with the ideals of, you know, the government of the country that they're in and the culture abroad. So I don't agree that, like, if an individual if something that they're pushing for in the government is being informed by their religious convictions, no problem with that. But if what's informing their religious that particular conviction would lead to them trying to advocate for passing a law that would violate people's rights, right? It would violate basic, like, structural things of what makes the for society, that society's citizens. They've got to check out. And I feel like a lot of Christians don't feel like they have to do that. Wilson seems to me to be the type of person who doesn't have to do that.
So, like, what's an example of something where you'd have a religious person trying to institute laws that violate other people's rights? I mean, aren't rights?
Yeah.
I mean, rights are defined by the government in the first place, aren't they? So, if you pass a law that says, eating babies is okay, I mean, the fact that we don't like it doesn't change the fact that it's been passed in a constitutionally consistent way, right?
It would be so in that particular. Let's say that you had a religion and they were like, look, in order for our religion to work and in order for our gods to be satisfied, every 5 years we have to sacrifice someone to them in a burnt offering. And as far as our government is concerned, like, you can't do that legally, right? Like, because that you can't. That's not going to happen, because the problem with your entire take on that, for their group, is that we need to do this because our religion demands it. Right. But as a citizen here in this country, you can't take the life of another citizen. So you end up in a contradiction. And what I think is happening with people like Andrew Wilson is, like, if we end up in a situation like that where there's a contradiction, the religious implication trumps the secular one, right? Where the secular one is going to be like, look, I'm not exactly sure what you got going on in your religion, just like I'm not entirely sure what's going on over with the Hindus and the Muslims and the Christians, the Baptists. I don't care. But what you're telling us that you want to be able to do is kidnap a person, which is a federal crime, and then murder those people to appease your God. As a secular society, those two things violate those laws. Do you want to do that for your religion? Go right ahead and try. But you will suffer the consequences at the secular level for kidnapping that human being and killing them. So how do you want to do this?
So I guess what I'm saying is that if you passed a law that said we have to kidnap and kill a person, then by definition, it wouldn't be illegal to do that anymore, right?
And that's another thing that he's doing, right? It depends. Right. Like you can, one of the things that can happen, and one of the things that happens in the US is something called, like, judicial review. You can have a law get passed, and it turns out that law, based on the way it was written, violates a ton of other jurisprudence, precedent, constitutional things, all this other kind of stuff. But it happens to get passed. By the time it gets challenged in court, the judges tear the thing apart, at least in our system, right? We've got the legislative, the executive, the judicial. Legislative branch passes this law with some weird language. The executive, for whatever reason, passes it. It goes out and it starts getting enforced. The first time somebody sues against it is like, what is this pile of shit? The legislative branch looks at it and like, yeah, this isn't enforceable because it contradicts with all of these things. It contradicts these aspects of the Constitution. It violates these three fundamental rights that are enfranchised for individuals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then they rule it out. So the whole thing with the sort of laboratory of democracy, and where I think guys like Andrew Wilson get this wrong, is like, well, hey, we all just agree that now for certain groups we can just suspend their rights and then do something crazy to them, like, we just declare them a human sacrifice, or we declare them a slave, or we declare them, a huzzah, or whatever, just imagine whatever ludicrous situation you want. The problem is it's not going to hold up. By the time it ends up getting examined, it's just going to be, yeah, you can't do that because you just passed a law based on religious grounds that allows you as a group of individuals to take that individual with the same rights and privileges and protection under the law and treat them as something other than an individual, kidnap them, torture them, and then murder them, for a religious thing. Like, you can try to get this off the ground. You could pass this. You could vote. This is one of those things where I think where people actually think like there's a certain paralysis where, well, we voted for it, it passed, it went through the system, now we're stuck with it. Like, no, you're not. you can be like, that one right there, maybe that one slipped through the cracks. That one's nuts. It's not going to hold up. That's the point of something like judicial review.
Okay, but if we're appealing to judicial review, it sounds like we're just kind of kicking the can down the road, because this is one of the reasons why Scalia drove me absolutely insane. Taking the view that he was just calling balls and strikes. And there's the reason that there's more than one Supreme Court justice is because it isn't calling balls and strikes, right? It's interpretive. So, and we're seeing it right now in the current makeup of the Supreme Court. You can have people interpreting the intent of the Constitution in such a way that, someone, I guess what I'm saying is that if you can, in the same way that anyone can interpret any piece of literature to mean anything, provided they're sufficiently well read and articulate enough, you can do the same thing with the Constitution, because it isn't calling balls and strikes. So it seems like you're banking on the every 5 years sacrifice getting jammed up by judicial review, but it seems that is still contingent on the judiciary reading things the way you think they ought to be read. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is that there's really no way to get around to perfectly get around the possibility of bad laws being enacted. And we've seen this already in like half dozen Supreme Court cases in the last 10 years, right?
Right. No, I think you're right, at least in that case. But I don't think it's as bad as that. The harder thing is making sure that the separation of powers maintains. If you start having an overgrowth of one or the other, then you start having real problems being able to maintain it. Because if the legislature can declare certain things above and beyond judicial interpretation or executive enforcement, then they can slant things in the way that they want. If the executive can overrule what the legislative would word or would appropriate in terms of money, then they override everything. If the judicial ends up doing the same thing, then no one can get anything done because the judicial just, is basically constantly blocking it. They're like the goalie. If they're working kind of in an appropriate balance, that the legislation is proposed, it goes to the executive. If it's signed in, then it goes out. All right, it starts getting enforced. It then is subject to judicial review, and in judicial review, it may not succeed, or certain aspects of it won't. They're always changing. They're always getting refined, and that is subject to the idea of precedent. I know that some conservatives hate the idea of that, but that's why court precedent ends up becoming kind of an important aspect of that, because there's one thing to pass the law. It's one thing for the executive to accept it and sign it into law. It then has to be applied in real world scenarios. And every time that happens and a judge makes a decision or judges make decisions, those establish precedent for that. So it's constantly evolving. And that makes it complicated, but it does give you some room it gives you some reason to hope, I guess.
Yeah. So, I'm not trying to be entirely doom and gloomy here. And kind of what's informing this line of questioning is I have, as enjoyable as it is watching you dunk on Pine Creek for 45 minutes to an hour, I've started drifting away from a lot of progressive political commentary in the last 2 months because, to Doug's point, with Nathan, whenever it was a couple days ago, the video that you reviewed,
Yeah.
there's really nothing that progressives can do at this point.
Oh no, that there is. I mean, there's nothing liberals can do, and I was actually I'll be doing a video on that, probably in another day or two. It might be pre-recorded, but I've been kind of going through that because to kind of give a spoiler on one of the bigger problems with, I think, the way that a lot of Democrats end up approaching a lot of these politics is that they tend to assume that everybody understands how politics works, and then they just talk about the things that are going wrong as if the majority of people understand how things are supposed to go right. Republicans don't message that way. Republicans just message by telling everybody this is what we want. And then if people react and say what you want is monstrous or it's stupid or it's unrealistic or something like that, they just let that splash up against them. They don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
And for a lot of Americans, that works, especially as generations go by. They just don't have any real frame of reference for how this stuff works. Democrats act like people have some kind of naturally ingrained understanding of civics. So instead of not only do they not talk about what they actually do, they don't ever talk about what they want.
But I guess what I'm saying is that at least for the next 12 months, with the judiciary, the executive branch, and the legislative branch firmly in the control of one party, I fail to see what kind of activism or political engagement a left-leaning person could avail themselves of with the hope of accomplishing anything, again, in the next 12 months. Like interim midterm elections, when that little disaster zone rolls around again, that's a different conversation. But for the next 12 months, it really doesn't seem like, to your point, Republicans are perfectly happy to have everyone furious at them for the next 12 months. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, because their messaging is different. Their messaging kind of makes them immune to that. Over the next 12 months, like there are certain things that leftists can do. There's certain things that some progressives can do. For certain liberals, establishment kind of Democrats, you're right. In the next 12 months, there's going to be very little that they can do because they can't talk their way around this stuff. You know, if it's somebody like an Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan or John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, they're fucked. They're proper fucked. Like they really can't go anywhere with this because they've sort of wedded this idea to they can be these people that are holding up this sense of normality in the government, while and somehow they're going to get rewarded in the long term for being these stalwarts of maintaining the institution, while Trump is parading his way through it and just peeing on everything. And it's like, no one gives a shit. Like, half of them aren't even going to care. They don't even know what you're pretending to prop up. So as long as that continues, then any of them are going to drift away. Most of them just need to get primaried anyway. Especially,
well, I guess what I'm saying is that even if you had Bernie Sanders be every single senator and every single representative on the liberal side, that still wouldn't make a difference because the votes just aren't there. You can have every single liberal pulling in the same direction and it's not going to make a difference.
I disagree, because Republicans are always in this situation, and Republicans are always pushing the message. Republicans are always pushing a narrative. They have frequently and constantly been put in a situation where they're on the back foot, they are disadvantaged, but they are constantly selling their message, and they are constantly messaging to the public and to their think tanks all the time.
Sure, but what does that messaging accomplish in the next 12 months?
Well,
Like-
it's not 12 months, but you need to spend 12 months if you're going to do 24 months, and you need 24 months if you're going to do 36, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason that you need that is because they did that, and that's how we got Trump twice.
I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that memories are so short that they can do anything for the next 12 months, with or without, rhetorical pushback from the left, and then the fight resets next January or whatever next November.
If the progressives lose it, or if they lose their minds, which they usually will. But like I was going to say, I'm planning on doing a video where I'm kind of lay out something. I think it's a slightly ambitious for my channel, but I'm hoping maybe if I'm right about it, maybe somebody will pick it up and kind of run with it. But
I'll be looking forward to that, because again, I hate to seem. There's a big difference here between apathy and despair, I think, and people accuse liberals who are losing their mind right now about being apathetic. This isn't apathy. This is despair. This is like, there's nothing that I can do. It's not that I don't want to do anything. It's that I don't think there's anything that can be done. And I just haven't heard compelling arguments that would convince me otherwise. So I'll be very eager to see if you can make my mornings easier to confront.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to be laying out, I think, is basically just sort of like the polar opposite of some of the central ways that I think these guys are campaigning, but the conservatives, and kind of laying it out as a way that I think leftists, specific, not liberals, not centrists, can do that. So the goal will be to present a few things that, like, okay, so here's some narratives that you want to like constantly hit on, and these are the narratives that you want to avoid. I'll give you a hint. One of them was, so there is a term called palingenetics. So it's an appeal to a kind of golden past, right? It's something that conservatives do often. Trump does it all the time. The Republican Party in general has been doing it a lot. It's to appeal to a bygone era that we need to get back to and restore, and only they can do it, or only he can do it for you. The antidote to that is to basically be like, yeah, that is a horseshit idea. The idea, don't look back, don't be navel gazing, don't get left behind, go forward, make it better, work to improve it. Pull up in a way you can actually kind of co-opt the conservative message, bootstrap that shit. You need to move forward, not fantasize about what got left behind. That shit's gone. You need to move forward and be rational and facts don't care about your feelings. Plow ahead and make something better. The trick to this, however, is that if you're going to do that, if you're going to make that division work, it has to be consistent. You have to be constantly telling people, look, we are about establishing a better future by making the present better incrementally every day. What they're talking about is fan fiction. It's fantasy. You want to make that opposition. Alyssa Slotkin, when she gave the opposition speech after Trump's joint address to Congress, she was talking about how great things would have been were when Reagan was in, and how everybody got along.
Yikes.
As soon as that happened, pull her, hook, hit the gong, she's done. If you surrender the narrative to this halcyon past horse shit, you are ceding ground to the conservative narrative. Don't fucking do that. And the other aspect to that I will be getting into is that polling happens and it shows that Americans are here. Democrats typically look at that and adjust to meet that polling where it is. Conservatives look at that, they make a gross noise in the back of their throat, and they're like, betcha I can change their mind.
So I'm wondering, who is the target audience for this kind of reversal of the look backwards, look forwards dynamic?
Everyone. You campaign everyone.
Do you think that is a message that getting back to Pine Creek as a kind of working example. One of the things that I think that you and others like Nathan at Digital Gnosis and James Fodor have been noticing is that Doug will use statistics in ways that are just categorically erroneous.
Yeah, irrelevant sometimes. Yeah.
Irrelevant sometimes, but also often just wrong. Like the conclusion of the conclusion to be drawn from those statistics is at best not what he was saying they are, and at worst the opposite of what he was saying they were. And when you have that kind of person, it seems like they are not open to rational conversation. So how does focusing on the future with a target audience of everyone reach the ones who aren't open to rational discussion in the first place?
You have to be kind of careful about it. So it depends on P Mars is trying to get in. I just kicked him and banned him. Bye, P Mars. I mean, it's a constant battle. It's a constant sales pitch, and it's something that conservatives have dealt with too, even when they were dealing with sort of like Reagan Democrats that the more libertarian wanted to kind of pull them away from from shoring up or defending systems like Social Security and stuff. The way that you do it initially is something very, very simplistic. Again, I don't have this entirely fully thought out.
Why not? Why haven't you figured this out?
I'm working on it. There's only so much if you're good at something, never do it for free, and nobody's paying me for this yet. My idea is this. So the conservative message is like, we need the government to be small enough to drown in a bathtub, and you should be able to do everything on your own. And if you can't, you're a failure and a loser, and everybody hates you and they think that you're a loser. You want to be alpha, you want to be cool, you want to get the chicks, then you need to bootstrap that shit and get it done. Right? That's sort of kind of culturally how they're playing things off. And then any policy that kind of trickles around from that is based on like get rich, die quick and beautiful, whatever. The idea behind what you're trying to say there, where you're like, okay, how do we get away from like let's put it the basic tension of how do you talk to people who are conservatives who are attracted to the idea of nostalgia? When somebody like an authoritarian comes around and appeals to this golden age from 30, 40, 80 years ago, that's what you got to get back to. You tell them basically this, like, it wasn't as good as you thought it was, and even if it was, we can make it better. And if you're telling me that you want to be left behind, I will certainly leave you behind.
Okay. Yeah, I think the second part of that has a lot more potential to be compelling. For
conservatives, definitely, because it feeds
for conservatives. All right, fine. It was as good as you remember, but it can be better.
It can be better, and you know what? If you don't have the stomach for an improvement, then you can just wait there, you cuck.
I mean, so to that, and I promise this will be the last thing, but it's your fault for bringing up this point. I think that one of the biggest failures of the left in the last 25 or so years is that even if the left is correct, is correct in its policy and ideological convictions, the enactment of those convictions prejudices a lot of people. And one can make the argument that, they deserve to be prejudiced. But that doesn't solve the problem that there are people being left behind by progressive policies. So it's very difficult to to advocate to get someone on board with your ideas if doing that harms them. And to give like an absurdly simple idea, right? If half of the country were against miscegenation, and you said we're going to make miscegenation legal, and it's the right thing to do because miscegenation is a fucked up idea. Well, all you've done is succeeded in pissing off half the country. Like, there has to be a way to get that 50%, or at least some relevant proportion of that 50% on your side. Even if your idea is good and their idea is bad, I don't think that we can rely on the goodness of the idea being sufficient. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you have to provide buy-in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the two-word way of saying what it took me 7 sentences to say.
I think that I disagree with everything that you said. No, I disagree with the notion that, like, so the idea that progressives have put forward anything that I'm not going to say this is a purity thing because this almost comes across as a no true Scotsman. By and large, most of the stuff that we end up passing that comes across as progressive are usually stopgaps to sort of basically make capitalism work, right? Things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, S-chip, any of these programs, food, everything to food stamps is built around essentially shielding capital and capitalism and private acquisition and gain and profit. It's basically to soften the blow that it has. And I've mentioned this before with other people. One of the things that I think that has happened with liberals is that a lot of centrist liberals are essentially trying to defend a system that is like with DEI or with any of these other, like with these marginal systems that provide a little bit of aid and a little bit of comfort. Is like, what we want to do as liberal progressives is make sure that you all have an opportunity. Everybody has one big chance to come into the pool and compete in this great game of American capitalism. And the problem with that is that you're essentially saying, we want to be as inclusive as possible about getting you into the world's most exclusive fucking competition economically. And where the conservatives end up benefiting from this is they're like, oh yeah, well, the reason that things are wimpy and pussified and all this kind of stuff is because you need to take your mittens off, right? Yeah, I was telling my nephew this. I'm like, the goal, it's a dog eat dog, sink or swim kind of competition. It's Thunderdome, bitches. It's not this thing like you go in there with pads and rules and referees and regulations. Fuck that shit. What you do, you kill the first person that you find and you fashion a weapon out of their bones to kill the next 10. You know what I'm saying? That's how you win at capitalism. And when people are desperate, angry, and have been internalizing an idea that they are in it for themselves in this American government, that resonates with them. Because that person, even though they're telling them some horrible shit, they sound like they're telling them hard truths. They're completely crocked, right? Like they're out of their mind. But it sounds like they're honest because they're at least giving them, like, this is the system I want. All gas, no brakes. You accelerate towards the red light with no seatbelt and slam on, the idea that progressives are trying to do, by and large, is like, that's where capitalism starts. But what we can do is we can put seatbelts on it, and we can put speed limits on it, and we can put safety rails on it. We can put a helmet on everyone, and we can put mittens on everybody, and we can saw off all the hard corners of it. That's essentially what we have in the United States. That's our left wing. That is not left wing. The left wing message is supposed to be, yeah, that shit, that's fucked up. Because that's rich people telling you that what you need to do is fight tooth and claw to even stay afloat, while I absorb all of the land and all of the riches and keep making profit automatically just by laying in the cut. The left wing is actually looking at that person's like, why hasn't that person been removed yet?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only pushback I'd give to that is, to whatever degree left-wing policies are attempting to broaden the playing field, and this goes to what I was saying before, that's prejudicial to the people that are on the field already. And I think that is that's the hump that is difficult to get over. That
Yeah, I agree. I would say this is the thing. What you have to actually tell people is like, look, this is the game. The important thing to do is to change the state of play.
the system is
problem,
messed up.
Yeah, the
So,
problem is for
yeah.
people that are on the field. The problem is that the people winning the game own the field.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is, and this is important in psychology, you can't take half the field from them. If you take only half of the field or make them or force them to allow other people to contribute, they will resent you 200 times more than they ever would. The most important thing that you can do for those wealthy narcissists that own the field, take it all.
Yeah. And I guess that's like, I totally agree with that take. What you're advocating for is a kind of political revolution that is sadly difficult to anticipate.
Yeah, and even it's scarier. It's incredibly difficult to negotiate and control.
Yeah,
because if it did happen in this country, it would be chaotic, it would be random, and it would take on like so many different flavors of things. It would not be consistent at all. It would be madness. The only thing that we could hope for is that cooler heads prevail, and maybe we cultivate something out of it that's good.
I already lied by saying I was going to stop talking, and then I kept on talking. So thanks a lot.
I need to get off too. It's time for me to wrap this up. But thank you for coming on. Those were great questions. I'm glad you brought those up.
All right, take care.
Yep, take care. Yeah, thanks again. All right, folks, I am going to get out of here. So I hope the rest of you are really thank you to everybody that's been in the live chat. Special thanks to PMars for getting blocked and kicked. He did click on the link. He did want to have a conversation. I don't care. I hate him. So sorry, PMars. Maybe next time. Let's maybe do this again. Probably next week. I'll try one of these live call-in shows, and hopefully, if Mr. Mowdy calls in, I can have him like actually ask a question, get his mic working. All right, folks. Thank you again. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. If you got any suggestions or anything, send me an email, jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com. I'm going to get out of here. Take care.